folks, it's Silver Dave, and today I want to talk about a very touchy subject. This is on the possibly you might be offended meter. I'm not sure where this falls, and so I just want to start with a little bit of a disclaimer that if you listen to this video, it might influence how you feel about 4th of July and about fireworks. So it's just a little bit of a disclaimer that I don't want to ruin it for you. But because I've had this talk with a number of people, and some people said, Dave, you should make a video about that. Have you ever talked about that in a video? And I thought, well, I didn't know if I wanted to talk about this because I didn't want people to feel, I didn't want to ruin the day for them or ruin things. But at the same time, I feel like this particular subject it's a really important subject, and really it's something that's on my mind every year at this time, ever since I came back from Afghanistan. And so we're gonna make this video, and it does relate. It relates to silver, relates to freedom, and a lot of really important stuff. And so here we go. We're gonna get into the weeds of this thing, and that is 4th of July. People love 4th of July, and they want to go out and have barbecues and do fireworks and hang out with their family and their friends, and all that is wonderful. I think that's fantastic. The thing that really grinds my gears, so to speak, is that on 4th of July, well, first I have to give you a little bit of background, and that is that in my research, I've found that the reason why we're doing the 4th of July fireworks is that it's the idea of shooting the fireworks is sort of a relic, in that before there was fireworks, that what really happened was that the people in the neighborhoods would shoot their biggest cannons. And they would shoot their biggest cannons and their biggest, most powerful things in order to show that we would stand up to the tyrants, and that, we would not be oppressed, and that we were very powerful. And it was kind of shooting your guns in the air, and it was basically like a show of force. Like that way we knew we were powerful, and that reinforced it, and it helped to motivate and also to keep so that we could maintain that position. Now, the reason that's important is because that celebration, when I was a kid, I really liked fireworks, and I loved the sound and the sparkles and all that stuff. But all that changed for me. And the reason it changed for me, when it changed for me, was when I was in Afghanistan. I had combat missions, and we had a lot of adventure in Afghanistan. And I'll side note that though I would not want to ever work for the government again, I did learn a lot when I was in the Special Forces, and I'm very grateful for the experiences, the things I learned, and those experiences that I couldn't have had. So I'm grateful for those things, but I wouldn't want to work for the government anymore. But that's my side. And one more thing, actually, is that I had a lot of fun in some cases. Like, we'd go on these missions, and it was like adventure. And then when we'd fly back on the helicopter, you could, it would be hard normally to sleep on one of these helicopters, with like the doors open, and it's like wind blowing, and there's like the squeal of the engine, and it's like bouncing and stuff. And so normally you'd never sleep on the way into a mission. But when the mission was over and you were on the boots on the ground for 2 or 3 days, you barely got any sleep, and it was hot, you'd get on that bird, and you'd just fall asleep on the bird, no matter what. You'd be upside down, and you'd fall asleep. It didn't matter. You're didn't matter how uncomfortable your spot was, or you had the multifunction canine sitting on you, and Like, it was just like whatever. Everyone just fell asleep hanging out the edge of the bird because you were so tired, and because all the juices were flowing and you were like running around getting shot at for days, and then you're like flying out of there and you just fall asleep anyway. But so it was kind of fun in hindsight, some of those action events. Now, what was it that ruined fireworks for me? And I'm sorry, I want to say, if this messes up your fireworks experience, I hope you forgive me, but I believe in freedom and liberty, and I think this information is really important relating to that. So here we go. When I was in Afghanistan, I remember there were times when we would call for close air support. We would get shot at from these different buildings, and sometimes we'd have a guy who would pop up out of a window or on a rooftop and he'd shoot an RPG at us, and we'd engage those buildings, and you try to engage a guy. Sometimes a guy would pop up in a window here, and then by the time you saw him, like, he shot at you a few times, and then once you figured out where the stuff was coming from, then by the time you try to shoot back at him, he'd like be gone, and then he'd pop up somewhere else in a different window, which actually is really good tactic. Side note. But anyway, when we'd have these different buildings, sometimes they would engage us, really come at us, and we'd call for close air support and say, we have, building number 27 on our GRG, we have hostile engagement from, RPG from the rooftop, this, that, can we get close air support to basically drop a giant bomb on the building? A lot of the time, they would say no, they would not approve the strike if we couldn't guarantee there would be no civilian casualty. So in a lot of cases, like, we wouldn't even get the strike. They'd be like, no, denied, we can't do it, we can't guarantee there's no civilian casualty risk, even though guys are like shooting RPGs at us from that exact building. So, but sometimes we did get the airstrike. And when we got the airstrike, I don't think I'll ever forget the way it felt, because I was sitting on a rooftop with my rifle, and I'm sitting on a rooftop, like, there was this outer perimeter wall, and so like the outer perimeter wall was made of like mud and hay and crap, like literally like cow crap and hay and mud, and these outer perimeter walls, they were like a foot thick, and they were like bulletproof. You could even strap a block of M112C4 right to the side of one of these mud walls and blow the charge, and it wouldn't even hurt the cow crap and hay and dirt wall. So side note, these walls in Afghanistan made of mud and dirt was really strong, and they were bulletproof. And we would, pick these fortress-like buildings to strong point during the day. And so we had these outer perimeter walls, so you could sit kind of on the edge of the rooftop, and you could be looking out, looking for a target, and sometimes rounds would come in and it was like choo choo, and you kind of lean over and try to see if you could find what you were getting shot, where you were getting shot at from. But if you leaned over enough, that outer perimeter wall became cover, so it would actually protect you from incoming fire. So we're sitting on the edge of this rooftop, and they approved the airstrike, and one of the airstrikes, and so here comes this fixed wing aircraft flying over the top of us, and this fixed wing aircraft flies over the top, and it drops these rockets, and the rockets come right over the top of us, and they're like, and it was I can't impersonate the sound of it, but it was, this thing, they come over and you could just feel the thrust of it just going in. And with these rockets, they go right over and it's... Folks, I'm trying to find a way to articulate the way that these rockets, the way that it sounded, the way it felt. I can't even give you an example of anything on the planet that felt and sounded like these rockets coming off of fixed wing aircraft. Now, I shot a whole bunch of Law shoulder fired rocket launchers, and In fact, I have a whole story about that we should save for another video, but it's related to massive gratuitous money wasting and piece of garbage military weapons that go hand in hand, overpaying for total garbage weapons. But let's save the shoulder-fired rocket launcher story for another day and possibly another channel. I don't even know if we can talk about that on here. But the shoulder-fired rockets, I mean, that was powerful, and you really felt it thump when you'd shoot it out of your shoulder. You'd feel the real thump, and you'd feel the blast wave. And when it would impact, you'd see it go out there, and if you'd had a good hit, you'd see that impact, and you could feel the impact. But it was not even on the Richter scale of what these things coming off of the fixed-wing aircraft were like. I mean, first off, these rockets coming off fixed-wing aircraft are hundreds of pounds compared to the rocket coming out of the shoulder-fired tube, which is like, a few pounds. It's maybe like four pounds payload, versus these things coming off the fixed-wing aircraft is like 600 pounds, 700 pounds of charge. And the thing is that when it comes off of that wing, it's got so much speed and velocity, and that the propulsion, you feel the propulsion of it, that it's like really, I can't even just impersonate, but also because it penetrates so deep and hard into the target, and then it has such a powerful charge. When that thing goes, I mean, first, just when it goes over the top of you, you just feel this thing ripping over, and then when it hits the building and detonates, you feel the earth shake. And I'm not talking about like, you go to fireworks, that's just like ear noise. I'm talking about this thing is like, it feels like you just got like, poof, like your whole body just got smashed by the air. Like you just got hit by a wave of water, at the same time, your whole body feels this thump. And it's not like in the movies we see explosions that have lots of flames and a big fireball in the air. Thing is, that's not what you would typically see. That's Hollywood explosion. And Hollywood explosion, they add all this fire and flame and stuff to make it look cool or whatever. But typically an explosion is not fiery, especially because it blows, it projects all the air and turns into gas, so it actually puts out fires. And they've used explosives to put out fires in oil rigs, like in Iraq and things. And so, but you see this rocket hit, and it's you see an explosion. It's white clouds or black clouds, but not really fiery. And then there's a crater where a building once was, and also you see it before you hear it. So you see this thing, and it blows up, and then it takes about a few seconds before the shock wave hits you. And when the shock wave reaches you, it's like it just shakes everything under you and in you and on you. Just, man, I can't even explain it. There's nothing that I can even use as an example to articulate how powerful those rockets are. Like, after watching those rockets come overhead and hit the building in front of us and feeling the power of it, it was, off the charts. Ever since that happened, when I go to a fireworks show, the fireworks, it doesn't sound anywhere near the same. It's like, and it's like, oh, okay, that's cool, but it's like really weak. And the reason, what I'm getting at is that the point of fireworks was supposed to be shooting our biggest cannons as a show of force. But over this past many years, the tyrants have taken away our right to have a cannon. They've taken away, basically, you're like barely even allowed to have a handgun. Never mind rockets and cannons. Meanwhile, these guys have all that stuff. They have rockets, they have the most powerful stuff. You're not even barely allowed to have a handgun, depending on what state you're in. And so it's watching the fireworks, it's toy noisemakers. And so we're celebrating our our independence while we use toy noisemakers, and the toy noisemakers are not even allowed in most states, but in other states where they are allowed, you can get certain toy noisemakers, but only certain ones. You can't even get like big ones. And so when I watch fireworks now, after having seen these really powerful rockets, now when I hear the toy noisemakers, it seems so weak, and I feel like this celebration of our power and our might as a free people has been disabled, and now we just use toy noisemakers if you're even allowed to do that. And so, I'm not trying to ruin fireworks for you, but just that it's hard for me to get as excited about fireworks now that it's been weakened, and that we have toy noisemakers. They have fixed wing rockets, super powerful stuff that they used your money to buy, that they are using on us, on other people, and also what goes around comes around. And I always thought that what we did in Afghanistan, what we were used for, because the soldiers, like I support the soldiers, but I'm against the wars. And that the wars are frauds. Almost every war that America's been involved in the past many, many decades, almost every one of them is a fraud. And that, but the casualties are real. The dead people on both sides are real. The trillions of dollars they spent on it are real. But the reason behind it and the so-called goals are not real. And so, basically, I'm just sharing with you, this is why fireworks, when I watch fireworks, I kind of get a little depressed. I don't really like the fireworks as much as I used to, because like I said, it's toy noisemakers, and it's us really just, being dominated by these guys. Like, okay, you can celebrate with your toy noisemakers, but only certain ones that we approve, and only on a certain day. So, anyway, I hope that this video reaches you well. I hope you're not mad at me. If you love fireworks, you can still love the fireworks, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents on this. And then, since we want to relate this to silver somehow, in some kind of a way, well, just like with the cannons, when we stopped using our cannons, and we decided that we would stop because it was either inconvenient or probably convenience was a big factor, and you couldn't get the permits and all that stuff. Well, once you stop using it, you lose it. And like my mother says, don't use it, you lose it, like in terms of physical health and things, or exercise. Well, that's where we stopped using silver. They took the silver out of the money. Now we're using this fraudulent monetary system. But if we don't use our silver and practice using our silver, then we might lose our silver. So just like with the cannons, don't stop shooting your cannons, metaphorically speaking. And that is that we need to use our silver. We need to start trading it and buying things with silver, and we need to accumulate physical silver, and we need to spread the word about sound money and money that is honest, like silver and gold, and promoting that idea. We need to bring it back to a large extent, and then we need to keep it. And so that's the final message here. And actually, one other thing I thought would be really funny to share with you, we'll put it on the screen here, was that on the 4th of July, on the debt clock, the M2 dollar supply to US dollars figure was 1776 to 1 on the 4th of July, which was kind of an interesting thing to notice. I thought, boy, wow. That's crazy.
Dave, let me ask you, do you see an equivalent between the fake noisemaker fireworks and the fake money we have today? Although we don't have the cannons anymore, we still have silver, so we should still use it while we have the rights?
Well, yes, it's similar. And yes, I do think that we should be using silver and networking and developing those contents. Also, we here at Local Silver Mint are building a spreadsheet of businesses in the New Hampshire and greater New Hampshire surrounding areas, and this spreadsheet to show all the businesses who are accepting silver. Any business who's officially accepting silver, and we've been building that list, and it's going to be ready soon, and we're going to be giving them out to our customers, and we'll also probably make that available online. And so that's an opportunity for us to bring it back, and it is so important, because if we don't do this now when it's easier and we wait until it's harder, then it's going to be harder to do. And so right now, while we do have systems of communication, while we do have internet, electricity, and accessibility to those things, this is the time to build those networks. Build a network with your local farm who accepts silver. Build a network with your barber who accepts silver, because in the next 12 to 24 months, my prediction is that we're going to see a financial downturn, which is going to be a huge problem. So use your silver, buy stuff, accumulate physical silver, and stack it up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Silver Dave at Local Silver Mint, and also feel free to buy our products. Click the link below, buy online, support us. Thank you so much. I'm Silver Dave, and have a great day.